We are 1 year away from the 2024 presidential election, and new polling from CBS shows us where the race currently stands. Right now, 51% of likely voters would choose Donald Trump in the general election, compared to 48% backing Joe Biden. There's also a difference in opinion about a potential Biden-Trump rematch. A majority of likely Biden voters say they feel nervous or frustrated. 62% of likely Trump voters, on the other hand, say a rematch makes them feel motivated. CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett joins me now. Major, so CBS polling shows it at the national level, and the New York Times Siena poll showed that in a Biden-Trump rematch in 6 battleground states, the incumbent is trailing the former president in all but Wisconsin. That set of polls from the New York Times led to what I think you can only call a freakout among Democrats. Tell me this, is that upset about those polls the traditional thing that happens to Democrats when polls come out and they get nervous? Or is there something particular going on here?
Well, I talked to a lot of Democrats today, John, and the words used to describe the two polls, ours, a New York Times Siena, bad, brutal, bad news, and I have, for purposes of discretion, edited out all the expletives that modified those various words. This was the worst polling weekend for the Biden reelection campaign, and no Democrat I've talked to disputes that. The one caveat that they do attend to this is they say it has been a particularly bad 3 or 4 weeks for the Biden White House. The war in the Middle East is yet another variable on the downward negative side that raises questions about his stamina and leadership capabilities. Also, it creates fissures within the Democratic coalition that are apparent right now in this poll, captured as it is. They don't worry about President Biden's reelection prospects nearly as much as they worry about the effect that these polls will have on the hard negotiations the White House is going to have to do with House and Senate Republicans to keep the government open, provide aid to Ukraine, Israel, border security, and the like, because they fear that if the president looks like he's on the downward trajectory and Republicans feel ascendant, and if tomorrow's elections in Virginia, Kentucky underscore that, Democrats I talked to today fear that these polls don't mean that much for the presidential campaign a year from now, but they could mean a very great deal on hard negotiations the next 2 or 3 weeks.
So speaking of the current response to these polls, David Axelrod, the former President Obama's senior advisor, suggested over the weekend that Biden should bow out of the race. There's a lot of other people who are not as experienced as Axelrod is, who kind of would like their fantasy candidate to come in and upset no one and rally everyone, which often happens, again, in these kinds of polls. But could even something of the kind that Axelrod's talking about even happen? I mean, is it even a possibility?
I mean, anything is possible. It is distinctly unlikely. And those of us who covered the Obama White House remember how frequently David Axelrod would set Vice President Biden's teeth on edge. Vice President Biden thought David Axelrod, specifically within the Obama West Wing, routinely and sometimes malevolently underestimated the capabilities, political and policy-wise, of the vice president. Comments like that over the weekend will only intensify that sense of teeth gnashing among the president and those closest around him. But David Axelrod does give voice to a concern that is not immaterial within Democratic Party conversations. President Biden looks weaker than he ought to. Is there anything that can be done? Over and over, the answer is no, there isn't. And more talk like that only serves to undermine the president at a time when he needs Democrats to rally around him. That is the conversation going on in Democratic circles.
Let me switch over to the Republican side. In the Republican primary, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds is endorsing Ron DeSantis. What do you make of her decision? And while endorsements don't often mean very much, is it a moment for DeSantis, who is far behind the frontrunner, to make some other point while the cameras are briefly focused on him?
It may do more for Kim Reynolds than it does for Ron DeSantis. What do I mean by that? For Governor Reynolds, this is a way of saying that her dispute with former President Trump, ridiculing her in Iowa about a more restrictive 6-week abortion ban in that state, was bad politics, is Kim Reynolds' way of defending not only her policy prerogatives, but the Republicans in the Iowa legislature who made that happen. It's also a way of saying that former President Trump can't tell her what to do. I'm not sure it's going to catapult Ron DeSantis in any direction in Iowa, though he certainly hopes it will. It's more about Governor Reynolds saying, "I'm an independent actor within the Republican Party. My base beneath me is strong enough, and former President Trump can't either intimidate me or bully me into a position I'd rather not take."
Major Garrett in Washington. We're always grateful, Major. Thank you.